You are listening to the Slow Living Podcast, and I'm your host, Stephanie O'Day. What if I told you that you could truly have the life of your dreams, the life you've always wanted, one filled with abundance, joy, and a sense of purpose? It's absolutely possible, and I see it each and every day with my coaching clients. It all starts with learning how to slow down. You deserve to live the life you've always dreamt about. Let's get started. Hi there, Slow Down Society. Welcome back to another edition of the Slow Living Podcast. And I am absolutely thrilled that my in real life friend, Angela, is here today to share her slow down story. So Angela, thank you for being here.
My pleasure. I'm happy to be here.
So one of the reasons I was super excited that you agreed to be vulnerable and come on the podcast was I know you as my friend Angela, who I met in high school, who married Mike, who you also met in high school. And there's not all that many people out there who have met their spouse in high school. And so you and I have always connected over that. But then once we had kids and I found you all over again as an adult, you had this whole other part of your life trajectory that I didn't really know about. And I would love for you to just kind of share your story and explain who you are and what you do.
Sure. So I had an idea of where I was going and what I was doing, sort of. I'd always wanted to be a teacher. I always thought I wouldn't be elementary school because I like projects and art and creating things, that sort of thing. But I was still kind of not sure what I was doing. I was in college. Still kind of, out there figuring it out. And then finally I decided, okay, I'm going to go into elementary school. That's what I wanted to do. Then I worked with some kids in an after school program and I decided they're great, but that's not what I really want to do. It's a lot. So with that, what did I decide to do? I'm trying to think back. It's been so long.
We're not that old.
We're not that old, but 20 something years ago, it winds up, getting lost in there. So I was engaged to be married. There we go. I was engaged to be married and everything was going fine. I was planning, thankfully everything was, pretty good on, good path to go. Our wedding, I was engaged in 2001 and our wedding date was 02/02/02, Groundhog Day. So I had some time. I one day was in Reno celebrating my sister-in-law's birthday and I had a horrible, horrible cold. And so like I do with any candy, I chew it immediately, like I did cough drops. So I had cough drops of echinacea, kind of beat this cold. And so I came home. I still felt terrible. I went to sleep. I woke up. I couldn't feel my leg. I couldn't feel my feet. My feet were tingly and I just couldn't feel them. I kind of started sliding. We had stairs. I lived with my parents and I kind of slid down because I couldn't feel them. Almost like you're sitting on your foot, that tingly, prickly feeling. And it was weird. And, it goes away after a minute or so once you get going. And it didn't. And I kind of thought, oh, okay, that's weird. Whatever. Next day I woke up. And so I couldn't feel up to my knees. I'm like, what is going on? And so that was in my left leg. And so, I'm trying to remember just how it all went because it was so kind of whirlwind time. So go to the doctors, blah blah blah. By this time it had moved up both legs and then in both legs, belly button down. I couldn't feel anything and I could barely walk.
Gosh, Angela, how scary.
It was very scary because I didn't know what it was. You start reading and reading is not good. The internet and technology is fantastic. However, when something goes wrong, and you look it up, it's scary because it comes up with 1,000 things that could be wrong with you. And so Anyway, so I was looking up, I didn't know, went to the doctors. They wanted to do all these blood tests on me. And I mean, for anything from HIV down to like Lyme's disease, which of course you're going to need to do to rule everything out. But now I'm going through my mind, like, oh my gosh, how could I have had any of these things? Anyway, kind of speed it along. Turns out that I have multiple sclerosis. And so I was told on July 5th, 2001,
Okay.
that I had, okay, so I'm going to go back. So I was engaged in 2000.
Yeah.
2001 is when I was diagnosed on July 5th. Everything started April, last weekend of April. And so by July 5th, I was diagnosed, which is really, really great because lots of people go years and years without being diagnosed. So because of MRIs and they could see the lesions in my brain, then they could diagnose it. So to kind of go back, multiple sclerosis is a disease of the central nervous system. So it affects your brain and your spine. And it's kind of like, I think of it as like your nerves are kind of like a highway throughout your body. Messages go from your brain to different parts of your body to send signals, to move, to feel, and that sort of thing. So what happens is my body doesn't like the myelin, which is the coating around your nerves that protect it. And so it eats like the best way I can kind of describe it is it kind of eats little holes in it. And so then you think of it as like a hiccup or a pothole. And so it can't send that message smoothly down. And so then that's when you have, the tingling or you can't move because your brain can't send that signal. Like I remember going upstairs and having to think, okay, we're going to go up the stair now. All right, are we ready? Like I had to tell myself, okay, we're going to pick up your foot, and like I had to talk myself through it because I couldn't just move, like I typically did. So anyway, I kind of went through this time where, after being diagnosed, and being put on, let's see what happened. I was diagnosed, went through, everything got better. I have relapsing remitting MS. There's different kinds of MS. So I guess if you're going to say, what kind do you have? I have the best kind because it can come back, but then it goes away. Mm-hmm. And it typically doesn't leave residual side effects from that relapse. I have had several. Over the years, I'll tell you about that in a second. But from that first one, ever since, it's like my feet feel like I walk in sandy socks all the time. And that's all the time.
Okay. So really, if you and I are on a walk together, you feel sand in your socks?
Always. Right now.
I did not know that.
Yeah. I mean, it feels like I'm like my feet and my toes always feel like they're like something's under there. They're like it's a real weird sensation. It's a nerve sensation. So I take medicine that helps, but it doesn't make it go away. It kind of takes the edge off because it kind of gets frustrating and annoying sometimes because you're like, oh my gosh, stop.
So it's fascinating to hear all of this backstory because throughout the years, I've heard bits and pieces. But one, I haven't really questioned you a whole bunch because I, as your friend, just have always thought when you want to talk about it, you want to talk about it. And I don't think of you as Angela, my friend who has MS. I think of you as Angela who taught at the high school, Angela who's the parent of 19-year-old who matches my 19-year-old and then your son and who likes whales and who's married to Mike and who's like, that's how I have always thought of you. So I hope you know that one of the reasons I've never like pestered you with questions is not because I'm not interested. I just didn't want you to feel burdened by a whole bunch of my questions.
Well, the thing with me is that I deal with it by talking about it. And kind of almost instantly, not instantly, but once it kind of settled in, my mom actually was really instrumental in kind of helping me through that time. She contacted the MS Society for me. She helped me and encouraged me, because I think I went through kind of you kind of go through a grieving depression, sort of, I guess.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
And I mean, it was there because I was still in kind of a disbelief. I mean, it's been 22 years and I'm still sort of in a like, really, I have that? Okay. And I talk about it as if it's not mine. It's not something I deal with, even though I do and I know it. It's kind of like, it's just kind of this,
Like
no.
disconnect. Well, so it's interesting because at the age you were diagnosed, our daughters are like practically that age. So while you're telling your story, one, I'm very like involved and empathetic that I feel dreadful that you went through this and I did not know. Um, and then two, I actually have a lot of empathy for your mom and your dad because that's an awful lot to navigate. And so I'm thankful that you have your parents and everyone just leans on each other in such a great way.
I'm very, very grateful. And when, before I got married with Mike, I told him, because a lot of marriages dissolve over things like this. They can't handle it. The partner can't handle it because my future is unknown. I mean, the disease doesn't care where it goes and what it attacks. So the other things I've had over the years is I had optic neuritis. So it attacked my eye, my optic nerve, my eye. So that typically goes away. Mine took away my central vision in my eye. So it's like, you don't know. So I kind of live, I don't necessarily think about it, but at the same time, it's in my head. Like, I need to do everything I possibly can. And when I got diagnosed, so two things. So I got involved with the MS Society because I felt like I need to do something. I need to tell people about this. I want to educate people. And I've always been like that. And I guess that's the educator part of me. And so with Michael, I told him, I'm like, I don't know what this is going to be. If you don't want to do this, if you don't want to stay with me, I understand, because you don't know what your future is going to be like. Am I going to wind up in a wheelchair someday? I don't know. I mean, it's a possibility for anybody, but I have a disease that can cause that. And he told me, which always makes my mother, I think, very teary in a way, is like, it's not your disease, it's our disease. And he's always been there for me. And all the different medications, I had to have shots for 11 years. He gave them to me because I couldn't do it. It was just, I just couldn't. And so he did it for me. But after I was diagnosed, the company that I worked for decided that I could just fall down and it would be a problem. And so they let me go, which is not okay. And so
So you didn't immediately go into teaching. I did not know that.
No, I was still working. I was still doing the after school program. So I was in college still. And I was still in college. I take that back. I graduated at the end of 2000. And then I was kind of like in between. I was working after school program, just kind of figuring out what my next step was. So they decided after my wedding, after they all came to my wedding, that I couldn't come back because it flared again during my honeymoon. And it was still in the new stage, so it flared up again and I was having some problems. And so anyways, they decided, in however they just said it, which was not a good way, and let me go. So with that, all of a sudden I'm like, oh no, this is not okay. I'm going into HR. I am going to make sure I'm employee, like employee relations, employee like law, like make sure people don't deal with this. This is, so I went back to school to get a master's degree in public administration because I'm like, I'm going to stop this. And so I did finish that. However, that October, my sister started teaching English at the high school that you and I went to. And so she's like, hey, Angela, why don't you just become a sub? Just sub, you pick and choose your days. If you don't feel good, you don't have to go. So that's what I did. I subbed for 4 years. And so I was introduced into the high school world and I loved it. And I was there all the time because it's like 5 minutes from the house.
Mm-hmm.
And my sister decided to leave because she lived in Sacramento. And so she was commuting. She'd stay here during the week and then go home in Sacramento on the weekends. And she had enough. And so, hey, why don't you get your credential and take over and teach yearbook? Because that's what she taught. And yearbook is close to scrapbooking, sort of. And I love scrapbooking. And I say sort of because it's not. I mean, it is, but it's not. It's memories and it's documentation. It's all the things I love, but it's just digital. So anyway, so I went back to school and I got my credential to teach English, which I needed for yearbook. So talking about different pathways and different things that you're going to do. So I did have a pathway, and I used to talk to students about this. You're on your road, you think I am straight ahead. I know what I want to do. I want college. I want to get married. I want to have children, or whatever your idea is. But then, you have a detour, you have a pothole, you have whatever. And then you have to make a change. And, so even though I was towards the teaching realm, I was towards elementary school, but then, intervention happened, changed me into human resources. Intervention happened, changed me into high school. So after I did that, I taught at the high school for 16 years. And I taught lots of different things at the high school. But my primary thing was yearbook. But I always, in the beginning years especially, I got kids involved. They knew I had MS. They were at the walks. One year I had 96 walk participants, and I would say 90% of them were students. And they didn't do a ton of fundraising or anything like that. But the idea is that they were learning about what it was. They were going there for me, for just the cause in itself and representing, which I thought was quite amazing. And those were the early years, especially when I subbed. My sister really had a great influence on students and got them to go. And so I talked about it all the time with kids, and they'd ask questions. And even back earlier than that, I used to do the MS Society had a readathon. And so I would go and talk to little kids, and I would do demonstrations for these kids. And there'd be like 500, little kids out there listening to this, to do the readathon and that sort of thing. And it was great. I loved it. And but then they ended that program, and so then I do the MS walk every year. So 22 years of that.
That's wonderful. I love that you do all this, and I'm gonna in the show notes you'll send me a link where people can find you and can help see what you're doing and donate to the cause. I wanted to circle back, if you're okay. You had talked about the grieving process, and then you talked about detours in the road. So which absolutely lines up to everything that we write, coach, teach, and speak about with slow living, and that you have to know where you're going and kind of program your metaphoric GPS, and then you'll get there when you get there. And the good news is you're not dead yet. So you can, you can keep moving ahead. With that grief process, and I know you had that conversation with Michael about whether or not, so it's funny, you call him Michael. I've always called him Mike.
It's so funny because everybody, and then there's people who call him Mikey, so he's got lots of names he goes by depending on who it is.
Yeah. No, but I always thought that's his formal name. So.
Well, I figure I give Mike to everybody else, and he's my Michael. So.
Yeah. But I love that sort of conversation and how thoughtful and respectful and loving and talk about unconditional love, and that this is our symptoms, disease, what words? Do you call it a disease? Is it a disease or?
It's a disease. Okay. Yeah, it is a disease. It's an autoimmune disease.
Autoimmune disease.
As of right now, things change all the time. The technology and the things that even the medications. I started, there were 3. I don't even know how many there are now. It's unreal. So
okay. So we're most definitely speaking the same language. And so I want to circle back to that with you never know what technology and science has in store, because that comes up with me a lot with celiac. And I know that is the same in that way. With your grieving process, how did you go from getting this diagnosis to not knowing if your fiance is going to leave you, not knowing if you're ever going to walk properly, to shifting that in such a tremendously positive way? I mean, you are literally one of the most positive people I know, and I get lit up every time I'm with you and talk to you, because, oh my gosh, you and I can go down rabbit holes of crystals and astrology and let's go get a mud bath. Like I love chatting with you. So how did you decide? Did you decide like, I'm going to grieve and then rip off the Band-Aid, I'm done? Or how did you do that? Because it's really admirable.
Thank you. Wow, thank you. That's so nice. Because I don't see myself like that. I always say, yeah, I don't, when I see myself or think of myself, I don't think of that. So thank you. That's really nice. You know, so I don't know, like, if I ever truly grieved. So I did wind up going to a therapist at one point. And she said, have you grieved this disease? And I'm like, this part of you, because and I don't even know, because I haven't really lost anything and I have to say, when I talk to some people, even my mother, and she's like, oh, I feel bad, maybe I did something. No, like, this was supposed to happen because it sent me on paths I needed to go on, or that were meant for me. I mean, I kind of feel like, you can choose the way you go. So these things happen, right? I'm trying to think of the right words how to describe it.
You're just fine. So please know that I have a ping pong brain and I am A-okay with all of this. So who cares? You're doing fine. I think you're great.
So with this, okay. So the grieving. So I don't know what to do. So with the grieving, I don't think I ever grieved that. I grieved and I was sad that somebody looked at me and said, you can't do this job because you're going to fall down. That's the part that I was sad about. That's the part that upset me. Now, what am I going to do? I don't know. So that was, I think, what I grieved. And the way I deal with that is, I guess, maybe not think about it and just do as much as I can, because I don't want to have to grieve a loss. Like, oh my gosh, I lost that opportunity because I wasn't able to walk, or I'm not able to walk now, or see, or whatever the situation may be. So I became a yes person, which is a good thing to a point. But as far as like that grieving, I don't know if I ever really did, but I feel that I needed to go down. This disease. It was kind of, and it's just such a strange word. It's a gift in a sense, because it gave me a purpose. It gave me a drive. It gave me kind of that kick that I needed to keep going. And I can't just like melt in a ball and give up, because that isn't what I wanted my life to be. So I guess that kind of helps sort of answer that grieving part of it. So, I mean, some days I am like, I don't feel good. I'm just tired and I'm like frustrated. And I don't know if that's a grief. I've never like grieve sad, like cried, like I have.
Sure, but also there's, a shit ton, sorry, don't say bad words, but there's a lot of variables. I mean, you're the same age I am. So now there's perimenopause, there's newbornedness, like there's all this stuff that that a quote unquote normal person, and I'm saying that in quotes because you're absolutely normal and there's nothing wrong with you.
Right.
Yeah. So I wasn't kidding when I used the word admirable about talking about you, because I think a lot of people use whatever the obstacle is in their path as an excuse And you most certainly never, ever, ever have. You had the idea of, well, how do I get this boulder out of my way? Because I'm moving. I'm continuing on my path no matter what.
Knowing me, I'd climb over it. I like to do. If it's something like, why are you doing this? That would be one of the things. Like I would be out there climbing over this boulder to get around it. Not around, over. Yeah, no, I don't think it ever has really stopped me. I mean, when I lost the vision in my eye, I kept going to work. I could barely read. The second time I lost my vision, I did stay home that time because everybody's like, you're crazy. You need to just stay home and you just need to rest and get it, because that's what you need to do is just rest and let it kind of run its course. It's like for me, when it does come back, it's like a 6-week, kind of, I think of it as like a hill. Like you start, get worse, gets worse, peaks out, and then better. And so I would say it's like, but like 3 months. But I didn't, like, when I was teaching and I was working, I'm like, I cannot call in sick. I will not call in sick. And I didn't, until that second time where I'm like, okay, I can't do this. And it became too much. What I was doing, I was overstressing myself. Stress is not good, for anyone. Stress is a particularly, problem for MS because it's not good for your immune system. And my immune system is compromised because of the medicine I take now. And so I have to be careful, with that. But
yeah. So it's interesting because, I mean, I know you, so I know you've had some challenges. And a few minutes ago, you talk about how you're a yes person, but you are a yes person at times, perhaps maybe to a fault. Does that sound right?
Yes. Yes, I had a thing up on my wall. I don't remember. I think I've taken it down. But it's like, say yes, but know when to say no, and just learning, like, okay, you need to just stop. You need to sit down. And, Mike and the kids are away camping this week. And, the other day, he messaged me and he's like, oh, what are you up to today? I'm like, oh, I had all these things I really wanted to get done. I said, but instead, I'm trying to teach myself how to crochet. So
that's really interesting. My mother-in-law wants a crocheting buddy. She's taken a class at CSM. Do you want to join her?
Oh, for sure.
I don't want to do it.
I was starting this blanket with my daughter, and so she kind of paused on it because she does this pen pal thing now. And so I kind of got discouraged. So I'm like, fine, I'm going to learn how to crochet animals and things. So I'm crocheting this doll that's consuming all of my time because I start and I'm like, no, I got to start over. No, because I am a perfectionist. I can't just say this is enough. A doctor once asked me, she's like, can't you just say it's okay and move on, or it's good enough? No. Yet I've learned, and I know that there's no such thing as perfect. There are flaws with everything. I mean, there's textbooks. I taught yearbook, right? And so I was like, it's got to be perfect. No, it doesn't. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm going to do the very, very best I possibly can to the last moment. But I know it can't be perfect. But I'm really trying with this doll. So with that, my husband, he says to me, he's like, it's okay. So I'm like, I just sat here and I just did, watched TV, and I just didn't feel like doing anything. And he's like, that's okay. You need to rest. And he's so good about that. He never, ever pressures me or makes me feel bad. I think I put the guilt on myself because I feel like I need to do more, because so at the end of 2022, I left teaching. And so now I'm kind of searching out what my new road is or what road I'm going to go down. I don't quite know yet what I want to do. I have ideas, but at the same time, I'm like, oh, I'm not qualified for that. I look at my resume. I'm like, it looks like I'm qualified, but in my mind, I'm like, you see all these nice things about me, but like at the same time, I'm like, I don't see that. It's kind of like that with the way I look at jobs. Like, I can't apply for that because I'm not going to be good enough.
So let's talk about that a little bit with your mindset and kind of your self-talk. So you didn't let yourself go down a negative chatter rabbit hole when you were diagnosed, you didn't let your brain constantly tell you can't do this, can't do this, can't do this. You shifted that to how can I do this, or what can I do differently to make this work? So what's the obstacle now?
I put so much time and effort into developing my yearbook class. And I think, a lot of times people think, oh, it's just a yearbook. Yes, it is, but I made it so that it was an academic class, and I spent a lot of time creating this class. So it was accepted by UCs and CSUs. So, students had like solid like credit for it. I mean, you can get scholarships for it. So I put so much time into that when my daughter was little. I feel like looking back, like, oh my gosh, did I neglect her because I gave all this time to that instead? And I asked her, and she's like, no, you were fine. And I think back to when I was, 3. I don't remember what my parents did with me. So I'm pretty sure she doesn't remember any of it. So, and she was perfectly fine. I feel like, this generation, I feel like parents feel like they need to do 50 million things with their children, sign them up for a gazillion things and be everywhere all the time. And I started out with that with my daughter, and I quickly got burnt out with the 50 million things. And so I kind of focused, school, and she had a couple of things.
Well, if it helps, I saw. So what's today? We're recording this on what, a Friday? I think I saw her Tuesday. She's fine. She's doing great. She's a great kid. She's going to England. She's doing just fine. I'm really proud of her. I'm proud of her. I'm proud of you as a mom. And yeah, you're a very good mom and very with it. When you were talking about your mom and how she was scrolling through trying to figure out if she quote unquote did something wrong with MS, is it similar to celiac in that it's like you have it and then something triggers it and wakes it up? Is that right?
So that is one of the theories. So there's kind of a bunch. So they don't know if it's environmental. There's different things out there. People who live closer to the equator, there's less of it. Further out, there's more. Like oddly enough, the Bay Area has a pocket of people in colder climates, like like Norway up that way. I am 40% Norwegian. My father always blamed anything wrong with me on my being Norwegian, and my mother. Norwegian people are wonderful. Okay, I'm great. So it could be environmental. It could be, diet. They eat at the equator a lot more, fish and green vegetables. That's not the typical diet here. It's not. It's sunnier. The vitamin D is super important. So I'm like, okay, get my 10 minutes of unprotected sun. Now my sunscreen, because you need that sun for things. It could be genetic. My great grandfather, I found out, has it. A distant cousin has it. Now, are they far enough out on the Norwegian side? But are they far enough out genetically that it does nothing? That means nothing for me. I don't know. But so yes, it's an environmental trigger. They think possibly Epstein-Barr, aka mono, could be a part of it. They say, I forget the statistic now, but I want to say it's a pretty high statistic that anyone with MS has had it, whether you know or not. And when I was in the 7th grade, I had tonsillitis, so I thought, for a year because my tonsils were so infected. And the doctor's like, oh, well, when she's ready. Well, I don't know what, 12 or 13-year-old says, yes, take me to surgery. And my mom kind of followed along with what I was doing. And so that's one of the things, should I have pushed that, again, it was it's my path. It was kind of there, it kind of led to this potentially. So I don't know if echinacea, it is supposed to kind of help your immune system fight. Well, my immune system should not be fighting that hard because it's now fighting the myelin. So that's why I have to be careful, and why my medicine, it suppresses my immune system, is so that it doesn't attack. And so, my mom called, I think Hold, or whoever the company was, like,
Sure.
how much echinacea are, in these cough drops? They're like, I don't think that's enough. I think there was a bunch of things. I was getting married, it's a happy stress.
Yeah.
I was sick. I had a terrible cold. If I get sick, as any illness can trigger a flare. So COVID was really important that I stayed as
right. I
as
didn't see you for a few years there.
No, and I masked a very long time. I actually, whenever everybody went back to school, I stayed home. They allowed me to stay home and teach from home still. And then the second semester, or the semester, of 22, that fall or spring semester, I did a leave of absence, and then I didn't return. It's just I was not comfortable in the classroom. And it made it hard to hear people. For me, that's another stress. I'm around all these kids, and then they don't wear the masks right, and they don't wear masks. That was kind of one of the things that kind of pushed me to leaving. But anyway, so as far as like the disease go, there's like a whole bunch of things that they think could be reasons why. I don't know if they know really specifically why. There's this whole B cell, T cell thing. Really technical. I don't understand it. I mean, I kind of, to a very simplistic explanation, understand it. To explain it, don't know. So yeah, I think that there's lots of things that could have made it happen. I think I had it. I think it was triggered. So
okay. So do you feel like if someone has some sort of something diagnosed, is it worth it to try and go back and explain the whys? Or is it better to just be like, this is what's happening, let's move forward?
I think a bit of both. I think if you're going to think back about why, I think it's good because then maybe if there is something that I could have done differently to prevent it, or to, I took medication right away. Some people don't. Right. So like for people who get worse, they can think back, well, why did it get worse? Oh, I didn't take medicine. I did that. So I don't know if I can go back and have whys of what I could have done any differently, other than, I don't think I could have done anything differently. Oh, the thing with the tonsillitis also is if your immune system is compromised, they think that if it could be triggered at that point. They think, I've read things that it's triggered by the time you're 15. So at 19 years old was my very first episode, but I didn't know. And so I had tingling in my feet at the time. I had a hard time. My back was bothering me, and it was diagnosed as a virus. It'll go away. They did not tell me that I had MS or suspected MS at that time. Until later on, the neurologist that I went back to when I had that second flare, it was in his notes that he suspected MS at that time. And I'm like, why didn't you tell me? Because why would I tell well, number one, they needed more than one flare to diagnose it. And he's like, telling somebody who's 19 years old that you might have MS, what is that going to do? Like, because then it's in your head, and then you're waiting for that next thing to happen. And so, for that, I'm like, okay, I get that. And I was good for all those years until I was 25. And then that's when it flared, big. But so, yeah, you can go back and you can look at the whys. And I think it's good to kind of think back about things, but you know what? I don't blame anything, or I can't change it. I can't go back and change it. It's happened, and I can only move forward and do better.
Do you think having MS and being diagnosed before having children changed how you parent? Do you run like every doctor's appointment? Do you kind of question doctors more so, or anything, or no?
No, actually. So the first question I had when I was diagnosed, because I was really worried, is, can I have children?
Mhm.
because for a long time they said no, like back in the day, no, because they didn't know if it was hereditary. It's like the chances are so low. I mean, there are definitely mom and it's more prevalent in females than males, but there are plenty of males out there who have MS. But so there are plenty of parents and children with it, but the chances are low. And so
Mm.
that didn't cause me to think, oh, okay, I'm not going to have children, because the chances are so very low. And sometimes I'm like, oh gosh, I hope I wasn't selfish in that, because I wanted children so badly that I've given them this potential problem. As of now, they're both fine.
They're amazing and wonderful and
But
lovely.
like your daughter, my daughter both have celiac,
Mm.
it's and no, and I don't have it. My sister and my niece have it,
Mhm.
so who knows?
Mhm.
Um,
And you don't try and kind of scan your thoughts to try and figure out what triggered her celiac, do you?
Sometimes
Or
I
does
do.
she? Because she was diagnosed much later than my daughter.
Um, you know, I don't know. I haven't asked her if she thinks back. I know, like with my sister,
Hmm.
she had problems like her whole life with canker sores
Mm.
and eggs, I think eczema was one of them, like all these different symptoms when she looked at what celiac could cause. And she's like, I have that and that and that and that and that. And nobody ever thought, oh, you have
Yeah.
celiac disease. If we eliminate gluten, you won't have these. As soon as she eliminated gluten, I would say like 95% of her issues went away.
Yeah.
I mean, it was amazing what it did. So, like with my daughter, I don't even know,
Hmm.
what it could have been. I thought maybe I had thyroid disease as well, which is common with people with MS. Is
Wait, say it again. I missed what you
Oh,
said.
I have thyroid disease as
Oh,
well.
I didn't know that. Okay.
And so a lot of times you have one autoimmune, you'll have another,
Hmm.
unfortunately.
Hmm.
And so I thought maybe I was 13 when I was diagnosed with thyroid disease. And I mean, that one's simple. I take a pill and fine. I don't have to do, there are a lot of
Yeah.
people who have a lot of problems. I
Sure.
don't know. And then the things I have, you have to try to think, okay, MS, thyroid. I don't know. It's that I don't
Right.
know. So with
So I don't beat myself up, but I'm aware. So so it's really hard for me to talk to you because you know my family. But I promised Adam that I wouldn't put the kids' names out on
No, I
there.
get it. I get
Okay.
it.
So yeah. So my 18-year-old was diagnosed at 22 months, and I was working at a childcare center, and this wasn't for the county. This was a for-profit childcare center. And
Mhm.
we had moved away to the Central Valley to save money in order to move back to the Bay Area. And as we all know, it costs a crap load of money to live here. So I needed to work. And she was in a different classroom than I was. And they kept prying her out of my arms to be in this other classroom. But there was just a pocket door between. So she would be on the other side of that slider pocket door that was latched, crying hysterically with her little chubby fingers going under the door to try and reach me. And they would not let me hold her and parent her and do all the right things. And the director at the time, who is utterly obnoxious, said that you can't give special treatment to her because you've got this own class to teach. So looking back on it, and that's when the vomiting started. And so I do have guilt that I caused this situation and did need to talk to a therapist and did need to work through all the things. And if I allow myself to go down there, I will cry. Like it's really upsetting to me that I continuously disregarded my gut and my intuition and like my motherly instincts and just quote unquote followed the rules um because I needed the paycheck. But she assures me that it was much easier for her to have been diagnosed at 22 months because she doesn't remember what goldfish taste like and that kind of thing. So for your oldest, who is diagnosed in high school, right? Is that right? Or junior high?
Let's see. It's been, she said, tell me the other day. I always forget when I mean, I feel like it's all the years have like melded, especially with COVID. I want to say it's been, I think her freshman year of high school.
Yeah. So was that difficult for, I mean, she's a smart kid and she's probably like, did she go through a mourning period of not being able to eat goldfish?
No, I mean, she was just like, okay. I mean, and it's funny because she and I think my niece was, as crazy as it sounds, was elated she had a gluten-free buddy.
Oh, so I will tell you that when I came home and told my family, and my daughter was like, "Oh, that's awesome." I'm like, "No." It's really great eating out with you because I'm like, "Oh, do you have the Find Me Gluten-Free app?" And you're like, "I do."
And I mean, and that's the greatest thing though now is like there's so many great for her, like she's so good about eating and experimenting and trying things where, I eat like a kindergartner still. So it's really hard to take me out. I mean, Mike is always like, I have to cook 4 meals because he's the one who cooks, because nobody eats the same. And I'm like, well, you don't have to. You can choose my Kraft macaroni and cheese.
I know. So I don't know if I did tell you this. So my oldest is newly engaged, and her fiance is nut free. So that's fun. Which, I mean, whatever. We already read labels, but he also, quote unquote, eats like a kindergartner. And I say that with love because I think his mom listens to my podcast. We adore him. But he doesn't eat beans. And that happens to be like her biggest food group because she doesn't need to be gluten-free, but she prefers to eat very little gluten because she can tell that it bothers her a little bit.
Sure.
And she doesn't eat very many animal products. So beans are a huge, so we were on the phone today and she's like, Mom, I don't even know how to meal plan and do this stuff. And I'm like, so just type into Chat GPT. I need nut-free, meat-free, bean-free 5 meals. Then Chat GPT will spit it out and then copy and paste into Chat GPT. I need an itemized grocery list for these meals.
That's a fantastic idea. Oh, I'm going to do this and my family's going to be so impressed. So thank you. So,
but Mike, I'm sure has your AI stuff all over the place.
And he doesn't use it.
Oh, interesting.
Like my resume, I have to say, I had my resume done, and I'm like, I'm gonna put it in Chat GPT and see how it makes it sound so much better. It's the same stuff, but it just looks 10 times better, 1,000 times better.
I know the robots are taking over.
They are. Yeah. But what I was going to say with my daughter, the person she's going to England with, her roommate is dairy-free and meat-free. So now it's
interesting.
Dairy-free, meat-free, and gluten-free. And I'm like, what are the 3 of you or the 2 of you going to eat?
Yeah.
And then I think there's 3 or 4 other roommates in this space. And I'm like, oh, good luck.
Yeah.
And even though she's leaving for 3 months, I'm like, no, that kitchen stays as gluten-free as possible because I am not reintroducing all that in here. It's too much effort.
Our house remains gluten-free. And even though she's away at school. It's
too much. And then my son, he's like, whenever I take her or what she and I will go somewhere and he's just like, gluten. Like, oh my gosh, he loves his gluten. I mean, because he eats I eat like a 5-year-old or a kindergartner. He's worse. He eats 3 things. So trying to find food for him is it's a joy to live here and food. But as far as I'm talking about her morning food, she has, I think, made a really great, for somebody who was 14 or whatever it was, 15, I don't know, 13, 14, somewhere around. She made a really good transition over and she was really able to, she reads everything, uses the app, even though it's not always, the most accurate. And, she works at Trader Joe's. It doesn't work at Trader Joe's. So, if they have to really read, but they have some great stuff over there for gluten-free. I mean, it's really nice. So
No,
I'm
I
happy
feel
with that.
immensely lucky that that is in our neighborhood. And
I mean,
and so that is why I get to see her as often as I do. And she's constantly telling me, "Have you tried this? Have you tried that?" I'm like, "Let's go do it."
the Madeleines are really good. I'm like, oh
OMG.
no. Oh,
Like literally mind blown.
right? They taste. I think okay. It's like an Oreo. Okay, I don't know. Am I allowed to say brand names? I don't know. But
Well, I wasn't going to say that she works at Trader Joe's. So
oh, sorry.
I'm thrilled. So
Trader Joe's.
you do you, Angela. I think it's great.
Trader
Yeah,
Joe's
no,
has been
Trader Joe's
awesome
Oreos
with
are
her.
delicious. Yeah.
Well, no, you know what? Real Oreos,
Oh yeah, those are
the
tasty.
gluten free, are I think better than regular Oreos. I'm not a
So
huge fan of Trader Joe's Oreos.
yeah, so in our staff room at work, because I work at the elementary school, they'll bring in the gluten free Oreos. Because we have a teacher who's gluten free, and people have come and told me, why do they taste better? I'm like, because they're gluten free. Like it's crispier. They're
Yeah.
delicious.
Oh, my son, for a while, he was making different kinds of cakes with Oreos. Like every day we'd have a new type of cake. Like, I mean, like a full on cake. He'd crush them and mix them and make, mug cakes,
Mm.
cakes. I mean, like, I'm like, okay, these have.
So I've just yeah. So here's the thing: when they're taken out of the package, they don't have calories anymore, right? Because we don't know.
I don't know. They're gone now. It's in a Ziploc. Who cares?
That is awesome.
But
That's
yeah. So
okay. So because we're still recording, and I should probably be professionally with you, even though
sorry.
I think you're great and I could talk to you all day. My biggest takeaway from knowing you for as long as I have, and I know when we were off on different college paths, we didn't know each other then, but then we got to reconnect when our kids were back in elementary school. You have continuously proven to me that you are not your diagnosis.
Thank you. I try not to be.
Yeah.
It's
So
always
it
there.
so
I
if
mean, it's always
someone is listening and they think, "Oh, I can't do this because now I just got diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, or I've got fibromyalgia, or I've got this, or I've got that," what advice would you give to someone?
I mean, because they're all different kinds of diseases, and how you feel, it's all over the board, But if you feel good and you can do it, do it. Do what you can. I mean, I go hiking as much as I can. I've done rock climbing walls. I do, Disney runs. I mean, I try to do as much as I can. So if you feel good and you can do it, even if you're not feeling spectacular and a friend calls and says, "Hey, you want to go for a walk?" Just go. You'll feel so
Mm.
much better. I mean, at least that's for me anyway. I feel so much better about myself because you have to keep moving. I mean, if you just did, then you're gonna get worse. I feel like you've got to keep on, keeping that movement and wanting to keep going. You can only watch so much TV. I mean, I do love TV, but after a while, you do have to get up and go. So people with those things, I mean, they are so different, and I can't say exactly because I've not lived with those. But as far as mine goes, I mean, it's really a mindset. I mean,
Hmm.
I've talked to a lot of my friends. I have quite a few friends actually who have MS. In I've met them in various ways, and I've known them before, and then they were diagnosed. It's kind of weird, or people know people, and they're like, "Oh, would you talk to my friend?" Sure. So I'm always open to that. So if you ever have people, listeners, or whatever, and they need somebody to talk to, I am happy to do that.
Okay.
I like doing, it makes me feel
Okay.
happy.
So we'll absolutely put in the show notes when this comes out how people can find you and reach out to you
Sure.
directly. Um, I when you talked about mindset, we talk a lot about mindset on the podcast, and like putting yourself in quote unquote a good mood is how I sort of liken mindset work. So do you have a certain process? Do you do affirmations? Do you do journaling? Do you meditate? What do you do to put yourself in that kind of positive frame?
I should do all of those things. I should. I mean, I listen to your podcast and about journaling. I'm like, okay. So this morning I was thinking about it. I'm like, how do I want to feel today? I mean, like I think about it. I may not do it, but I think it, and I'm like, I want to feel happy.
God, I adore you. Oh,
and then now my watch is like, what mood are you in? And I'm like,
wait, your watch talks to you?
Well, yeah, it'll pop up like with a question. It'll be like, how are you feeling today? And then it'll give me like a list of things. And then I can go back into the app, and look and kind of chart out like how I feel during the day. And then I can think about what just happened, and why I feel that way or whatever. I mean, I have to say for the majority of the time, I am in a good mood. I mean, I'm my family may say different, because I don't see it. I mean, I feel like I'm fine on my hello.
She didn't know I was recording. Sorry, my youngest just came in. I told her, I said, I'm getting on the phone with Miss Bullets.
Kind of like,
she's now laughing on the other side of the door.
Hey.
So Katie, sorry, I just said her name. We're going to have to hang up. Okay. Hey, Slow Down Society. I think you're great. I think you're amazing. I'm going to stop recording with my friend Angela, but please track her down. If you have any questions that you want me to forward to her, email me. I will email you back, steph@stephaniodea.com. I'm a real person. Angela's a real person. Mm-hmm. I adore her. Thank you for spending so much time with me. I think you're just absolutely wonderful.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You're so nice. You are very wonderful yourself.
Okay, I'm going to press stop. Do you have a slow living story to share? Leave me a voicemail at stephaniodea.com/podcast with any questions, comments, feedback, or testimonials, and I will be sure to include it in an upcoming episode. Also, if you found value in this episode, please share it with your family and friends and subscribe through your favorite podcast provider. The more you share, comment, and leave positive reviews, the more people we can reach and share the slow living lifestyle and messaging. Thank you, Slow Down Society, and have an absolutely wonderful day.